named President of the Republican Hispanic Citizens in Action. Anthony has taken the personal initiative to create a link between the Republican Party and the Latino community in Harris County. He's a believer in the new Republican Party as envisioned by President Ronald Reagan as far back as 1977. And he's now going to share his thoughts with us.
I'm wondering if I need to use the microphone or need to use it? Okay.
I remember the days when I did not have to use these.
Days are gone. I have to blame it on my contact lenses. I don't think that's going to take me too far. Folks, I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening. Thank you, Ms. Deanne McGee, for extending an invitation for me to speak to you today, and to, again, Texas Patriots. Many times in the courtroom, when I start arguing a point to the court, my adrenaline will start flowing so much that the court reporter has to tell me to slow down a bit. So if I start getting on a roll, you need to slow down, just wave your hand or throw something at me, and I'll slow down. I want to have a frank discussion today with you folks about minority outreach by the Republican Party. I'm not here to debate the Republican platform, but to give you my thoughts on what I think needs to be done for purposes of outreach. Although my comments will concentrate on the Latino community, they apply to all minority communities, whether they be Black, Asian, or any other community for that matter. Kudos to this organization for having this discussion. I've had this discussion before with Houston Young Republicans, and I would have hoped that other Harris County organizations would have invited us to speak, but I've still not gotten too many invitations. This is the second one, and it's very important. This discussion of Hispanic outreach is very important for three reasons. Number one, successful outreach requires interaction. Number two, interaction requires a presence in the targeted community. And number three, interaction defeats stereotyping. And unfortunately, my friends, stereotyping still is a problem with some in the Republican Party. And it was because of this stereotyping that I saw just this year that got me to the point of where I am now to come out and give my thoughts about outreach. I was at a Republican meeting probably in February. And before the meeting started, there were a group of ladies at the table who were speaking, talking about everything they wanted to do for the Republican Party. One of them says, however, that I do not want to have anything to do with Muslims because all those Muslims want to kill us. I was taken aback. I had to say something, and politely yet firmly let the ladies know that perhaps we should learn something about Muslims before we make comments about them. That was the first thing. About another month later, I was at a downtown meeting, and Chris Carmona, who's in charge of the Harris County Republican Party outreach program, if you will, gave a presentation on Hispanic outreach from his perspective. The first question out of his mouth was, what do you folks think of when you drive through a barrio? And an Anglo gentleman sitting in front said, I just want to get through there without getting shot. I was incensed. I was mad. I stood up and I said, what we have to stop doing is stereotyping. I said, I grew up in West University in the southwest part of Houston, and there's a Kroger's on Buffalo Speedway in 59. They got robbed, but I don't hear anybody saying I'm not going to go to the southwest part of town because I'm afraid I'm going to get shot. And stereotyping, as you know, is unfair, and it will present and has presented an obstacle to effective outreach. What is ironic about stereotyping is this. My grandparents, my father, grew up off of Navigation Boulevard, which is in the southeast part of Houston. If any of you have been to the original Nifas on Navigation, it's right across the street. Our family grew up in West University, the southwest part of town. We moved there in '67 when I turned 6 that year. I have never had a problem. We have never had a problem at my grandparents' house off Navigation. No robberies, no break-ins, nothing. In West University, where I grew up, Justice Del Wainwright, as a matter of fact, used to be one of our neighbors up across the street from us. We were probably the only two minorities in that neighborhood. But We lived on the street where that vagrant got off the train and killed the doctor in West University. Okay? I don't hear people saying, I'm not going to drive from West University because I'm afraid I'm going to get murdered. I hear them saying, I don't want to go into the southeast part of town because I'm afraid I'm going to get shot. Completely and totally unfair. There is now a young Anglo professional population that is moving in the navigation area and settling around the NEPAs on navigation. Can you imagine how unfair it would be to them if the long-term residents there off navigation in the neighborhood said, we're in trouble now, our buildings are going to get blown up, our schools are going to get shot up. These young professionals, Anglo professionals would say, why are you telling me that? Well, you look like Timothy McVeigh, so you're probably going to blow up all our buildings too. You look like Eric Harris and Dylan Kleinfeld who shot up Columbine, so you're probably going to shoot up our schools as well. That is completely and totally unfair. So you can see the danger in stereotyping. How do we defeat this mentality? Well, we have meetings like we're having here now to educate the general public. We educate ourselves on the various community, whether it be Muslim, Mexican American, African American, Asian American. We educate ourselves, and we correct others who make stereotypical statements. My understanding is that the party did published a 500-page program on outreach, and I think they dedicated about $10 million to outreach, I think nationally. But that's not going to do us any good if nobody wants to go into minority neighborhoods. Now, is there crime in minority neighborhoods? Of course there is. But there's crime in the Woodlands, there's crime in Spring, there's crime in West University, and there's crime in Bel Air. There's crime everywhere. But I think we all will agree that we just use our basic common sense, and we'll all understand and agree that most of the folks in all these neighborhoods, wherever they may be located, are law-abiding, church-going, tax-paying families who don't like crime any more than you and I do. The point that I'm trying to make is that before minority outreach can be effective, and the term is effective, by the Republican Party, Republicans have to, many Republicans, not all of them, have to set aside their stereotypes, come into these communities, and learn about the residents here. I was real pleased when Houston Young Republicans met at the new El Tiempo on navigation. I was glad to hear that the Harris County Republican Party had a picnic at City Gas Park off of navigation yesterday. So people are starting to come out and get out. Once the Republican Party is in these communities on a regular basis, not during election time, but not only during election time, but on a regular basis, you will establish trust. And why is this trust so important? Because without trust, no Democrat will ever want to begin to talk about a Republican, will want to begin to talk to a Republican about a subject as sensitive as politics. I mean, look at our lawmakers now. Republicans can't even speak among themselves. So reaching across the aisle and speaking to Democrats, that's probably going to be a little bit more difficult. And we can't, and we won't interact with somebody we cannot trust, whether it be a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, or anybody else. It's essential to establish that trust. If we want the residents of minority communities to vote for our candidates and heed the Republican message, we need to establish this bond of trust. And if we establish this trust, I think the rest will take care of itself, and I'll explain and touch on that in a few minutes. How do we not establish trust? We don't say that a Republican candidate is Spanish surname and expect that another Hispanic is going to vote for him or her simply based upon that surname. That's like saying that, well, Hillary Clinton is female and she's Anglo, so that must mean all Anglos will vote for her. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work. Telling minority voters that Republicans are for family like you are God-fearing like you are hardworking like you are, and expect them to say, okay, I'm a Republican, is not going to work. How many of us Republicans would listen to a Democrat come in and tell us what his platform is and say, okay, we're a Democrat. It's just simply not going to work. How's my speed? Am I going okay? Okay. Good. We've got to get minority individuals to the table first. And again, I keep repeating it, it takes that trust. We establish trust by involving ourselves in the community, these minority communities, not because we want to vote, not because we want them to vote Republican. We have to go in because we care. We're here because we care. There's no quid pro quo. Because minority voters are smart, and they will see through it in about 1.2 seconds. And let me give you an example. I had our president and CEO of the Tejano Center, Manuel Lopez, come and visit Republican Hispanic Citizens in Action to explain to the group there what we do at the Tejano Center. And the next day, one of our members sent an email to Mr. Lopez saying, we really enjoyed hearing your presentation. We want to help you any way we can. And he made an ever so slight comment, political comment, on conservative politics. Mr. Lopez, following appropriate protocol, forwarded that to our board chair and to myself, since I'm the vice chair. And our board chair's response was this: Mr. Lopez, keep an eye on this group. We're not going to let the Tejano Center be used for any political or religious purposes. And my response to that was, I absolutely agree. We're there to help the kids and the folks that are trying to better themselves, and we're not going to use the Tejano Center as a political platform. Just that ever so slight comment raised suspicions. And so we've got to be very careful about that. And as an aside, we at the Tejano Center have fought many Democrats who were trying to make a power play with us at the Tejano Center, so it works both ways. If minorities can see that Republicans care, inevitably they'll want to listen to what we have to say, and yes, we'll get their votes. They will become intrigued and interested. Wait a minute, I thought Republicans didn't care, but the party was out at City Gas Park yesterday, and they were giving treats to the kids, and they were here interacting with us. Well, maybe they do care. I want to learn more about the Republican message. Well, somebody told me you didn't care, but you're here, so you do care. So tell me about what you're talking about if you talk about this Republican thing. If they open their minds and listen to us, then we make progress. And again, let me give you an example. I've been involved with the Tejano Center for about 8 years. And I do that for no other reason other than I just want to help folks who work very hard, who don't expect a handout, but they're just coming up short. The school that we have there at the Tejano Center is to serve kids in about maybe 7 zip code zones who our regular school system had given up on. They had problems at school, or they're not making progress academically. Well, we're not going to give up on them yet. And so we open our school, and their parents expect them to come, and we expect them to come, and we expect them to do their work, and to graduate and go on to college. I have never spoken about politics with any of my colleagues, and yes, the majority of the colleagues that I'm involved with there are Democrat, but we've never spoken about politics. But when I ran for judge in 2010, guess what? I had the support of Democrats. The Mexican American Bar Association that I've been involved in since I've been practicing law, probably a Democratic organization. But when I ran, I had diehard Democrats telling me, look, you just get through your Republican primary and we'll get you elected in the general election. Democrats telling a Republican that. Isn't that what we want? And it's simply because I have been always involved with that community, with my community. And I grew up in the southwest part of town, but my involvement has been in the southeast part of town. So it just sort of, things take care of themselves if you just involve yourself because you care. That's my opinion. And I think the Democrats have that down pat. If you look at their website, they're doing blood drives over there. They're involved with this organization and that organization. I can imagine that was what the Democrats are going to start thinking if we Republicans become a regular presence in minority communities. Imagine. Who else is doing it right? Ed Emmett. Ed has been involved with the Tejano Center and is there whenever we need him. My Democratic colleagues love him and they support him. Donna Bohorich, just recently appointed to the State Board of Education. I saw her in November, the Daughters of Liberty event. I said, Donna, I want you to come out and see the Tejano Center, our school. So she came out in February, spent about 4 hours there, and no discussion of politics, just a discussion of one issue, and that is education. My Democratic colleagues on that board love her. From those 4 hours that we spent, and they saw how she was concerned about education, they don't care if she's Republican, they're going to support her because she's there to support us. I keep telling all the elected countywide officials in Harris County, if you're a judge, why are you hanging out on the west side of town, or the north side of town? You know, you serve the southeast part of town too, so you need to come up, you need to come out and visit your constituency out there. It doesn't do any good to hang out on the west side of town, which is obviously on the Republican side of Harris County. You need to hang out in the southeast part of town. I am not in any way suggesting handouts, and the folks in these minority communities are not expecting a handout. At the Tejano Center, we don't give a handout, we give an opportunity. And we expect the parents and the kids to do the work themselves. English is a second language. We have adults who want to come in and learn English because they know it's important for them that they assimilate. And it's important that they be able to interact with their kids who are bilingual. GED classes. Adults, parents who've not gotten their GED, they come in and they work hard because they know the importance of education. We have a food bank because although these folks work hard, sometimes they come up short. And the day of the week when the kids come to school most hungry, Monday. So we feed them because we want the kids to concentrate on learning, not wondering when they're going to go to lunch to eat. We just opened, I'm very proud of it, a health clinic there on the campus. Ed and his wife, Gwen, were very instrumental in helping us put that together. So now we have a clinic on site serving all our school from kindergarten to 12th grade, because a lot of these families can't even afford health insurance. So we don't want a child in school sitting there feeling sick. If we can diagnose the problem and treat it, then he doesn't have to worry about being sick. He can worry about about studying. You know, we give millions of dollars to our candidates. Write a check to them, straight out money. Here, this is yours. You know, so if we can do that, my friends, we can provide programs for people to allow them to help themselves. Okay. What else can we do to establish a bond of trust? Well, we can be creative. We can clean neighborhood parks. We can repair, paint, and clean housing for older residents, for ill residents. We can tutor school children. Even though the Democrats do it, we can do it too. We can have blood drives. We can have car washes to raise funds for disabled or ill residents. I mean, we always speak of God and country. If we speak of God, this should come second nature to us, to help out our brothers in need. There shouldn't be any question to it. And some may say that, Anthony, you sound like you're a liberal. Well, I'm not a liberal. If I was a liberal, I'd be hanging out with the Democrats. It's as simple as that. But I'm not a liberal. But I am a Ronald Reagan Republican, and I think many of you probably recall his speech from 1977, which I continue to appreciate more and more as I get older. You'll recall that he said that our party back then, even back then, that our new Republican Party should be for the minority and non-minority, for blue-collar workers and white-collar workers. I keep pulling that out and reading it because it's always new. It never gets old. And let me read some quotes to you that I think that are applicable. From President Reagan, and I quote, "We also believe that Americans, often acting through voluntary organizations, should have the opportunity to solve many of the social problems of their communities. This spirit of freely helping others is uniquely American and should be encouraged in every way by government." And I think, you know, maybe President Reagan would be proud. Here's another quote. "The time has come," and again, way back in '77 when I was, I think, 15 years old, I quote, "The time has come for Republicans to say to black voters, look, we offer principles that black Americans can and do support. We believe in jobs, real jobs. We believe in education that is really education. We believe in treating all Americans as individuals and not as stereotypes or voting blocks. And we believe that the long-range interest of black Americans lies in looking at what each major party has to offer and then deciding on the merits." And lastly, and this is how I see our party, I quote, "The new Republican Party I envision will not be and cannot be one limited to the country club big business image that, for reasons both fair and unfair, it is burdened with today. The new Republican Party I am speaking about is going to have room for the man and the woman in the factories, for the farmer, for the cop on the beat, and the millions of Americans who may never have thought of joining our party before, but whose interests coincide with those represented by principled Republicans." It's been a long time, over 30 years, and it's unfortunate that we're still having to work on that, but we are still having to work on that. And honestly, folks, I truly believe that minority communities are conservative. I really do. But I admit, after having heard those two comments earlier this year, I thought somebody's got to get Republicans to understand what these communities are about. And that's why I sort of taken the initiative on my own, separate from the Harris County Republican Party, to do what I'm doing. Minority communities, especially the Latino communities, are a proud people. We're rich, we have a rich heritage and a rich culture, and we're really ready to help others. And when somebody helps us, we're very appreciative of that, and we never forget that. In that regard, I'll close with a quote from a Cuban mother who came here to Texas via Sugar Land a few months back with her two daughters. They sought political asylum. It was granted. And a Catholic church there in Sugar Land helped them with food, with furniture, and gifts for her and her two daughters. And this is what the paper quoted her as saying about the whole experience. And I quote, "We appreciate everything the church has done for us, everything they have given to my daughters, but what we really appreciate is the feelings, the way they treated our daughters and the other kids, the way they were so excited to see us and were interested in us. That's what we appreciate most, all the kindness and the love they share with us." My friends, we are the Republican Party, and we do stand for God and country. And again, we stand for God, being able to interact with our brothers in need, or our brothers who are not in need, should come second nature to us. So I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to give you a few comments on outreach. If anybody has any questions, I'm sure Walter does. I'll be more than happy to Walter does.
But get others first.
Okay.
Save me for the last.
Yes, sir.
But don't forget me.
Okay. How about the gentleman behind you, please?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I've done some work with outreach to Hispanic groups.
Yes, sir.
Under the auspices of the Republican Party.
Yes, sir.
How do we communicate with them, get across that we're Republicans who care without preaching republicanism, without saying, I'm here because I'm a Republican and I would like you to come vote with us? How do you get that message across without going too far?
I think just being around and being involved, like Ed has done at the Thomas Center, like Donna did, to come out and visit with us and to interact with us. I mean, that establishes groundwork. And this is not something that this may take months, it may take years, but we have to make that effort to come out and just show we care. When there's a major catastrophe somewhere, the American mindset is that we all go and we help rebuild, we help repair. But every day there are people, again, who are trying as hard as they can, but just coming up a little bit short, and we can help them too.
If I could follow up, one area where we've done that.
Yes, sir.
Marissa here and other ladies have led a group teaching wonderful people how to become American citizens.
Yes, sir.
And I tell you what, there's few more heartwarming experiences I've had in the last several years than working with those people. This Polish boy who speaks no Spanish but reaching out and saying, this is a wonderful opportunity we have in helping them. So I invite everybody here who can come out anytime, call Marissa, contact the Republican Party and find out where that is. It's up in Conroe, and I'll tell you what, they're such wonderful people. I take a picture of my grandparents who landed in America just after 1900, their wedding picture, these two Polish immigrants, and say how proud I am of these people because they're becoming citizens. My grandparents never made it.
Well noted, well noted. I'm sorry, I think there was a gentleman back here. Melissa, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask this question. As the precinct chair, I get hit with this question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a list of places that they can go, organizations they can be involved with, where they can help? And then the next question is, what can they do? Because everybody asks, we don't know where to go. We don't know what to do. We want to do something, but we don't know.
Yes, sir. Before I was involved with the Tejano Center in the 90s, I was involved with the Association for the Advancement of Mexican Americans, which is off of 45 and Telephone Road, and they do a lot of what we do at the Tejano Center. So that's another. Those are the two probably major centers that serve the southeast part of town. R.W. Bray, who ran for I think it's, yes, sir, against Silvio Garcia. He was a Republican. He invited me to Booker T. Washington about a month and a half ago for a career day, and very impressed with the students, very impressed with the teacher. With the opening prayer, the whole student body was "Amen." I'm like, that's conservative, that's a Republican thing, and he was talking to them about working hard and to get where they wanted to get. But what was probably most impressive was a 103-year-old woman, African-American woman who had her college degree, and I think she had her postgraduate degree as well, who, when she said a few words to address a crowd, but then her daughter said, "My mom has always said she follows the will of God in what she does." Again, I'm thinking conservatism. The unfortunate thing about this school, they don't have a library. They have an area that's probably maybe 3 or 4 times the size of this room, and just sparsely populated with books. I'd like to think it'd be great if, from the $150,000 raised at the Lincoln Reagan dinner by the Harris County Republican Party, that maybe they can make a little contribution to get these folks a library. I mean, can you imagine the free publicity that would get the party? You know? And actually, I found out later that the Chronicle was there, but when they found out that R.W. was Republican, they decided they weren't going to interview him. So it's so simple and so easy, especially these candidates in Harris County that give monies to the pay-to-play folks. Yeah. I mean, that is just, to me, that is unacceptable, completely unacceptable. Melissa, I'm sorry. Marissa, I stand correct. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I agree with you 100%. Gentleman in the back of the ring.
Okay, I've got like 2 questions. One of them is there anything in the Republican platform that generally Tejanos wouldn't like? That's one question. The other one is that if a person is a Latin American, say, and he is a Democrat, how can he justify being a Democrat if he's a Catholic, and that they support baby killing? I don't understand how they could have anything to do with a political party that supports that.
It may be as simple as that they think the Republican Party doesn't care and is not going to do anything for them, and so they think the only choice is a Democratic Party. I mean, it's as simple as that. I had one colleague of mine who is a Cuban American from New York who made the comment that Hispanics must vote for the Democratic Party because they want a handout. Well, that's not true. That's not true. I mean, I'm sure he's driven around and seen who's building our freeways and building our houses, so I don't know why he thinks they want a handout. But that's an example of, even within the Latino community, different ethnicities are different from each other.
But if a political party supports abortion, that means they're trying to kill them all. You know, because that was what that was set up for, to get rid of minorities. Now, why would they have anything to do with anything like that? I can't even imagine. If they support that, well, they're no good right there.
Do you know Brad Bailey, who put together the Texas Solution?
No.
He is an entrepreneur. He has a couple of seafood restaurants, and he had a lot of Latino workers who worked for him. And I think what sort of touched him to actually get rolling on the immigration issue was that one of his longtime workers came up to him and said, "Why do you Republicans hate us so much?" And he was taken aback. But that gives you somewhat of a mindset. And then with comments that are made by Republican senators or representatives in Alaska about wetbacks, that's just insensitive. That's just so insensitive.
Yeah, but
What was the guy's answer?
Yeah.
Guy's answer on,
When he asked him why do Republicans hate us, what was the gentleman's answer?
I saw him, we don't answer. And he was more surprised that his worker thought that.
We want the same thing for everybody.
Yes, sir.
We want them to have the same opportunities through the free enterprise system.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want anybody to be, feel like they're downtrodden or not allowed to come up. That's what the Republican Party and conservatives and everything always supported, was to advance your position in life. That's all we ever wanted. Why would they even think if we didn't like them?
Because we're not communicating it with our actions.
Well,
That's true.
our actions are to promote business.
No, we're not
Yeah,
communicating to them.
Yes, sir.
You touched on an issue like that, which I think maybe the answer is obvious, but I'd like to get your input on that.
Yes, sir.
If you look at the political rhetoric and the position of the different two-party state on immigration,
Yes, sir.
how do you overcome that in building relationships? That does strikes me as very anti-discussion. When it's really focused on building relationships. And there are a lot of dry areas. You look at young kids who are brought here. You can show some sympathy to the fact, why should they be penalized because their parents they were brought here, their parents were never
I think I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I've heard some suggestions from within the party that those who are born here, children who are born here of parents who are legal immigrants should not be American citizens. But our Constitution says they're an American citizen. It's a story. But when you hear somebody, and as a lawyer, I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? That's our Constitution. And so when you hear people saying, well, those who are born American citizens should not be given American citizen status, I mean, that's just not right. And I mean, that offends me, being an American citizen of Mexican ancestry. If I was black, that would offend me. If I was German, that would offend me. That just offends me across the board. But I would presume that those in the minority community who hear a comment like that are thinking, wait a minute, why are you slamming me? Why are you going to slam our children? These are innocent kids who were born here. They're Americans.
It just seems like to me that debate is one of the big hurdles for the fund.
I agree with you, sir. I agree with you. And you know what? I practice divorce law, and in my opinion, there is nothing more emotionally trying than a parent trying to mediate with the other parent the primary custody of a child. Because a parent believes that if I give my child to my spouse in our divorce, he's going to think I gave up on him. And people yet are able to work that out when they mediate that. So it seems to me that this immigration debate should be worked out, but you got to sit at the table, and you can't sit there and say, well, this is what I want, I'm not going to talk about it. I mean, then what's the use? You've got to talk about it. So the system's probably not going to be perfect, whatever comes up, but at least we're making a little bit of progress. Which brings me to another point, and I'm not asserting a position one way or the other about immigration, but I do remember getting a call from a potential client, and I don't do immigration law, who said that he'd been here many years, he was unauthorized, not documented, he had bought a house, his family was here, paid his taxes and what have you, and he was being deported. So he was a de facto American. Well, and I asked Linda Vega about that at a King Street Patriots meeting. And it is not a criminal violation to be here without documentation. It is a civil violation. Okay, so it's not breaking the law as in I committed a criminal offense. Okay. So we've got to be realistic about this. We're not going to deport 11 million people. And if we're able to deport 11 million people, then I guess we're all going to be paying $20 for like 4 oranges. Okay, and our freeways aren't going to get built, and our houses aren't going to get built. So there's an economic. We've got to face it, my friends. There's an economic consequence to these folks being